changers. Last night in the online tweeting and texting and email conversation that was going on around the world while we were talking in person, the subject and the question kept coming up, but can Twitter change governments? No, Twitter can't, but people can, using that technology.
And do you think, Weiwei, that that's the only way now? I mean, do you think people will use any other way to challenge the government? How do you see political change coming in China?
I think that this is the first to get the correct information and to knowledge yourself and to equip yourself with a kind of sense of responsibility, anticipation. So that is a very, very important motivation for any kind of change.
And you yourself, though, you've had this blog. Have the Chinese pushed back? I understand they shut it down.
Yeah, they shut down 3 of my blogs in the same minutes. So you can see how fearful about somebody speak out their mind. I got over, about 12 million readerships there. And just
12 million?
Yeah, just 1 second. Nobody can read my articles. So that educated a whole young generation from 80s, 90s. They all ask why. Why this man's name can never be typed on the Chinese computer and all the sentence will disappear.
And just to be clear, you're able to be in China and to act in China and to walk around and do your art and do all that blogging? I mean, you're not sort of imprisoned or?
No, I've never been imprisoned, but I have been tailed, my phone has been, followed and my banking account has been checked, it's, all kind of harassment is going on.
And that's the dark side, isn't it, of the technology, that they can do all that now. In the same way you can use digital technology for the activism, they can also use it for the snooping and the suppressing.
But is it because he's such a big name that he's not, more seriously punished and cracked down on, do you think?
I think it might be that people kept asking you that last night, Weiwei, how can you go in and out of China, especially when you speak so strongly against the government?
Yeah, it's very hard to say. On one hand, the Prime Minister would memorize my father's poetry in front of the great public. But on the other hand, the police were, following me. So it's hard to say. I was beaten almost to death, so,
We have some pictures, actually, because when you were in Germany, you were rushed into emergency surgery, as we saw, and you had to have some medical attention there. And you tweeted these pictures around the world. What happened during the Iranian post-election crisis? You've been quoted as saying you spent 24 hours on Twitter every day. What were you doing?
We are so excited to see how this new technology can really let those young minds in Iran to tell the world what's in their mind. Many of their sentences just like the best poetry, and they risk their life, and how they're dealing with the police, how the government troops would dealing with them. So we all see it as something we can face in. We all encouraged and discouraged by whatever happens in the other nations.
Well, let me ask you, Pat, because here we stand at the pinnacle of technological progress and power in the West, in the United States. Jack Dorsey had said before your panel, he had been quoted as saying, Twitter is so empowering because it fundamentally changes and will change the way people talk to their governments. But what is it actually doing? Because it hasn't really brought change in Iran post the election. Is it more than just a force multiplier in sending out the message and the images and the words?
It's ultimately the question, and I found it interesting last night, Christiane, that Jack Dorsey himself said that in some ways Twitter is a very mundane thing. People tweet out, I'm going to have coffee, I'm picking up my child at school. But in doing that all over the world, they are reminding us all that there is a humanity that connects us, and that is why it is sort of small and trivial. But when you move it to the level in which we see a photograph of a young woman dying in the streets of Iran, when we hear an aid request from an earthquake victim in Haiti, or we see that it saved a life in Mumbai by literally getting someone directions to get out of a hotel, we realize we're not we are dealing with a game changer. So whatever, you know, it can and cannot do, and you're right, it hasn't instigated reform. That takes people. But people using the technology are starting the revolution.
So a final thought from you, Weiwei. Where do you see people power in whatever form going in China, and when, using this technology?
I think it's not predictable, and the new technology is the only way to helping China to going through this very difficult time. And this already showed a great improvement, and I believe one day it will happen.
Are you afraid for your life as you continue this?
No, I'm not afraid. I think my life through I grew up, always being threatened in different circumstances. So I think it's safer if I speak for somebody else and they know what I'm doing.
Ai Weiwei, Pat Mitchell, thank you both so much for joining us. And to take part in one of our new hashtag debates, this time with Ai Weiwei, you can do that afterwards, about Twitter's influence on democracy. Log on to amanpour.com/Twitter. We'll be taking your questions and using the hashtag Amanwei. And next, our postscript. China may be trying to ban them, but the FBI apparently feels if you can't beat them, join them. It's using social networking sites like Facebook. We'll tell you when we return. And now our postscript. As we've been discussing, authoritarian governments are doing everything they can to censor the internet to keep their grip on power. It's a different story in some democracies, such as here in the United States, where law enforcement agencies are embracing the openness of social network by joining Facebook, Twitter, and other sites, so that undercover agents can communicate with suspects and collect evidence. Not everyone is happy about that. Civil liberties groups say there's a danger that agencies like the FBI may go too far and threaten the privacy of law-abiding citizens, as the Internet's reach continues to grow. And that's it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with a look at the growing sex abuse scandal in the Catholic Church, and whether it would have happened if women were in the Catholic power structure. Until then, check out our podcast on amanpour.com/podcast. For all of us here, goodbye from New York.